Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Wade Alters. He teaches the inner game of business and success. He was also a former dating and lifestyle coach for one of the biggest organizations in that space for many years. Wade, I'm happy to have you here on the show.
Hey, it's good to be here.
All right, Wade. So you know the drill. I was just talking to you about it. We're going to start off with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that you've lived by that's helped you on your journey. So what do you got for us, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I guess the one that I like, my own personal one, if we go with that, I don't know if I consider it a success quote, but it's never your identity. It's always your strategy. And the reason I think this is really the foundation of it, kind of is just one of the most empowering things you could have in your life, is the fact that we all think we are our behaviors. We all think we are our past and the stories that we tell ourselves and the beliefs that came with that. And probably starting, you talked about back when I was, about 10, 11 years ago, I started off as a dating coach.
Yeah.
The first aspect of that really was, oh my God, like, you don't have to settle for the deck of cards you were dealt in life. Like, you can learn to be successful with women. And then really noticing that as a skill set, realizing that every belief you have is just a skill to either automate or de-automate. And the same thing with any behavior. And if you see someone out there with the behavior that you want, with enough time, you can develop that yourself. So that's kind of, like I said, it's never your identity, because once you put it on your identity, you give your power away. And if it's just a strategy to learn, for me, that's incredibly powerful.
So it's not who you actually are. It's just you don't have the strategy. You're not actually practicing the skill set you're not developing that skill set to get good at what you want. And once you do, you can then learn it.
Exactly. And it's even on the small things too, like negative self-talk or limiting beliefs or self-sabotage at that level. But then, of course, on the bigger level of becoming more of an extrovert or, more masculine or having a strong polarity, it kind of, like I said, macro and micro, you can kind of look at it the same way.
It sounds like you're saying here, like, everything is something that can be learned.
I believe so. That's my belief, right? You can believe not, and then you kind of, I might not become like, I might not dunk a basketball anymore. Not that I ever could, but I'm tall enough to maybe if I worked at it for a couple of years. But when it comes to personality traits, like you just being more assertive and just seeing people do certain things, and you're like, oh, I could never do that. Those are the things like, yes, you can. It's just a skill. It might take a little time. You might have 20, 30 years of looking through a different filter and thinking it's not possible. But really, I think anything is possible from that sort of mindset.
Yeah, I think, I could be like, oh, well, you can't dunk. You're not going to go to Mars. I can give off these crazy examples to try and destroy this. But I think for most of what we want in our lives, we can probably learn it. Happiness, some sort of success in business. You might not become a billionaire, but can you double your current level of income? For many people, that would absolutely blow their mind, not to make seven figures, but just to go from maybe they're making 50 to go to 80 or to 90 or 100. That would definitely be a game changer. Or even in health. I think this applies in everything, really, for like what we really want and what is attainable to have, like health, wealth, relationships, and personal growth. What other aspects have you applied this idea into your life?
Well, I'd say it really comes from, if we look at the starting point, is that, who was our first model? It was our parents or the people that raised us or our teachers. And so, again, the thing that was crazy, I heard this maybe first from Tony Robbins, is that somewhere there's a quote that says like 80% of your personality was determined before the age of 4. And on one hand, you can look at that and go, oh, okay, that's why I'm like I am. But the thing is that means certain things, like there's studies in emotional intelligence, that the book, and they say how like when your mom was breastfeeding you, based on all of a sudden you looked up at her face, and if she looked away too fast, like boom, you're an introvert. or something like that. So literally your entire life has been dictated of you thinking you're an introvert. Again, another identity level statement, a belief that you have about yourself. And it came from literally you were 6 months old and your mom didn't look at you because there was a deer outside or a car accident or something like that. And so then what happens is, just like anything else, self-fulfilling prophecy, it gets reinforced and reinforced. The belief gets stronger and stronger. Then you do things subconsciously to continue to reinforce it. And so what's really cool is all you have to do is become aware of these. And once you become aware of it, it starts losing its power over you. And it goes through that same pattern of unconscious incompetence, out through the whole unconscious competence that applies to more than just playing basketball or something like that. You can do that with your emotions, like you talked about happiness as well. And so it's just looking in at what those things are. The harder part is figuring out what the unconscious things are, right? You know, you talked about money mindsets. For myself, I remember I was like 25, 26, and I was talking to a guy in New York, or it was just two people that were like incredibly successful. He was 24, 25, and the other guy was asking him how much money he made. And he said, "Oh yeah, you're probably making over 100 grand." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." He's like, "Yep, totally nonchalant." He's like, 200 grand? He's like, "Yep." I mean, the dude worked at a hedge fund in New York, and it completely blew my mind. Because I grew up, you know, Southeast Wisconsin. Neither of my parents went to college. For me, 100 grand was like the holy grail.
Right.
And so, yeah. And it's like when you have that belief system, of course, it's going to limit the opportunities that you see or the confidence you have to say, I'm going to have a $10 million business, and the people that are surround you and everything too that go along with that. So that's another pathway of uncovering these limiting beliefs, and how you said it immediately puts you in a higher echelon. I guess one more thing while we're on it, that same principle. One of my, I won't say best mentors, I don't know, just one of my most successful mentors. He has a $300 million asphalt company. Like, they pave the most asphalt in the country. Okay. And so I was like, you know, you have those people, sometimes you can just say what you want. You're like, I'm going to have a $10 million, I'm going to have a $30 million company, something like that. Every time you talk to this guy, you're like, I think it could be 100 million, you know, based on his being 300. Just as you talk to him and the ideas he comes across, you're like, oh man, you just see, it seems so much easier when you're around the type of people that have been there before. So again, you can constantly be, you know, pushing your envelope, I guess, of what you think is possible.
Absolutely. This takes me back to that. It's like this old Steve Jobs video. Steve is like, I think in his early 30s or late 20s. And he says, like, you know, one of the biggest epiphanies he had was when he realized that everyone else, you know, is no smarter than you. Like, all the things that were created around you were just people just like you. And when you surround yourself, you know, we've all heard the quote, and I've said it many times on this show, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, by Jim Rohn and so many others who've made variations. But you talked about how you came from South Wisconsin, and you know, I come from this small town in like north of San Diego. And I just remember, like, for my dad to hold a job, that was a success. And so if you could hold a job, like, you're a successful man. And so that was my lens. Like, wow, if I could just hold a job and if I could have a steady paycheck, then I'm a success. But then after college, I started seeing a lot of different entrepreneurs and people really pushing themselves, reading books. And I've been on a whole spurt with that over the last decade. But man, just, you are who you surround yourself with in so many ways. And I want to come back a little bit to you on your transition out of, so, you know, this lifestyle dating coach. You know, what was it for you that transitioned out? Or did you realize that, like, wow, I could actually learn business? This is a skill just like dating that I can learn, and I can develop myself here and apply those same skill sets. What led you to want to leave and transition, and what were some of those epiphanies?
For sure. Yeah, I would say, like, I think a lot of guys, you know, in their mid-20s and stuff like that, is I wasn't really too aware of self-development before I got into the dating scene. And it's funny how when you dangle that carrot of getting a hotter girl, you start reading like Ayn Rand and Tony Robbins and Eckhart Tolle and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it branches out.
Yeah. And so I did have a passion for self-development, and I went on a whole path of spirituality, philosophy, and all that, and integrated it in with my dating advice and the coaching there, because it's, of course, really fundamental to have that self-esteem and everything like that, to be absolutely attractive. And so through that, I kind of was like, I kind of want to do the self-development path at some point, maybe when I'm in my 50s or 60s. We'll see kind of what happens here. And I knew to definitely round that out, I needed the business credibility at some point. And it didn't really happen like, okay, time to get the business credibility. What happened was I realized it didn't matter how good of a coach I became. And so I was working on the coaching skill set as much as I possibly could, yet I wasn't getting more clients. I wasn't really getting the brand awareness that I wanted. And what I realized through that, it kind of popped my bubble of the fact that in some ways it doesn't matter how good you are at your skill. Have you read the book like E-Myth and stuff like that, where he talks about the technician?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was really focused in on being the technician, yet not realizing that was only one small part of business. And so I started off just creating a blog. This was pre-YouTube era. This is like 2008, 2009, and started growing that, got it going really well because of the brand that I had and built that up. And after that, after a while, what I was doing is for the company I was working for, we did boot camps basically 3 times a month. So almost every single weekend I was in a different country. I taught in over 43 countries, 40, 45 weekends a year. So you're making those decisions of like, do I hang out with my friends? And then you basically give up a whole week of work because you don't get paid if you don't work.
Right.
And so really what it came down to was I was just trying to get my weekends back. And so I thought about doing a product, and that's where creating an online product came from. And the company I worked for, RSD, they hadn't even released a product in 5 years or something like that. And they thought it was all dead because of pirating and torrenting and all that sort of stuff. And you hit that point. I keep on hearing this quote lately. What is it? Something like the mother of innovation is like desperation or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just hit that point where something needed to change. And so I just decided I'm going to launch this product. And what I did was model internet marketing, some old internet marketing product, and said, okay, what is the price point? I didn't know anything. I had no copywriting experience, none of that. And just, brought on an intern to help me out with some of the marketing and launched this product. And it was a super success, like 6-figure product launch. I mean, now they've literally launched millions of dollars of products since that time, and it went through the phase of me recording the videos, realizing I was completely boring, and having to go take improv classes, re-record the entire product, like just mistake after mistake after mistake. But through that process, that's what gave me the confidence to say, holy shit, I just did this in the dating niche. I could do this in self-help now. Like I know the format of a product launch, kind of the Jeff Walker style product launch, writing the emails and looking at in the same way I learned pickup and everything. I saw the same thing happening here with marketing. And I really do think, again, when you don't think you can do something like master success with women, when you actually master that, you're like, I can do literally anything now because I've done this that I didn't think was possible. Like, give me business. All right. Little did I know business was a little bit more challenging. And maybe, hey, that was just my money mindsets and beliefs. I definitely was more of a hard case newbie when it came to business compared to dating. But that was kind of the first step. Jumped into doing life coaching, Skype calls, stuff like that. And then scaled that into another product, and kind of that was the impetus for everything pretty much.
And so why'd you leave the company that you were with? Why didn't you stay there? It seems like that was a good foundation and you found some success there, some really good early wins.
It was a mixture. I mean, there's a lot of things that went into it. Probably the biggest one was just corporate culture. And it comes to the point as a man, I think, you have to be completely free. Like we all want that freedom, and you have to be doing things on your own terms. And so as much as we had a great partnership relationship there for a while, there were certain things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do. I was really bought in and doubled down on the fact that I want to do paid advertising. I want to do all this stuff. And your margins are so tight with that stuff, and cash flow, and having to wait, like the difference between it going into your shopping cart versus someone else's and waiting a month. That's the difference between being in the black or being in the red. And so all those things combined led to kind of me saying, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own. We'll work together a bit here, and slowly more and more. I mean, what are you going to be more passionate about, your baby, or like, doing stuff with other people and getting 100% instead of, kind of seeing a big chunk of that go away. Yeah. And so that was kind of, because of those sort of different end goals, it led to me going off on my own, which, like I said, it was tough. It was a tough decision because you lose the safety net. I thought I was further along from a business acumen than I was, but let me tell you, when you lose any form of income and you got to do it all on your own, as I'm sure you know, there's all sorts of new challenges and scary things that come to the table.
So when you hit that moment where you left and you were on your own, and you said that there was a lot of challenges and scary things, did you ever think about going back? Did you ever think, oh, like, what did I do? Like, maybe I was thinking ahead of myself, or were you just all in?
I feel I was pretty much all in because the thoughts that I had were less about going back, and it was more about ending up on my parents' couch, bankrupt, with my girlfriend breaking up with me, and that. So, I mean, I had the scary, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do with my life when this fails? And then also there was a period where I'm like running around, maybe trying to find investors and things like that. So, I mean, I guess if I look at what I was doing there, I was completely double, like, this is it, line in the sand, this is going to happen. I mean, I'll do whatever it takes. Because it really was like the end goal was to move this way. It just was a little bit faster than I expected.
I think that's how it is for a lot of us in scenarios where we can do something, but we're just not yet ready. But sometimes you gotta make yourself ready. And in that process, you're really going to discover who you are and, how much you can handle. Talk about that moment for you, like that, whatever it takes type moment. If you can envision, maybe you're trying to put together a program or product and you're just cranking, you're just like your whole schedule and your day is just about like getting this product or program or making it happen for your business for the first time. If you can take us back to a moment or scenario like that.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I've always had either like really concrete deadlines. Previously, it was because there was other instructors that had to launch. And it was during those periods that I completely amazed myself, like literally amazed at the increase in productivity when you have just a concrete deadline and shit just got to get done, Yeah. And so that also gave me a lot of confidence to know that like I didn't really have that issue with like a lack of urgency, Whereas I see that with a lot of clients, I have to really be like, you want to do 10? What about 50 client? And like really like pushing that sort of stuff. And I, doing a lot of reframes of like, dude, if you don't take action now, your life is going to be fucked in a year. Like, don't settle for this, push it, For me, I guess the other thing, I'm super, super competitive. And so right away from the start, when I left, I don't know if I've ever even said this like publicly, but it's just like, okay, that's how well they did. I just got to do a little bit better. They get better. I'm just going to do that. And so there's the number. That's the number I'm going to reach because I believe that I'm super intelligent and a hard worker and I can get there. It might take 10 years, but I'm going to do whatever it takes. So it's kind of like, I don't know I've heard this before, but sometimes it's good to have a little bit of like dirty goals where they're not really the healthiest motivators.
Occasionally. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So it's you don't want to be like, it's kind of like with like, I guess, dating advice or something. Like one of the initial motivators for a lot of guys is like, I just gotta get a hotter girlfriend than the girl that dumped me, and it's like, hey, it gets you started at least. Yeah. But of course you ultimately want to have healthy, good goals too.
Healthy, good relationship there. Yeah. What would you say were some of the habits that helped you be successful in what you do?
I think the thing is actually, I would say the ones that were best were the ones to actually slow down work to build more balance. Because what happened to me was I had these really extreme goals that I wanted to achieve, and it led to sacrificing my health. It led to sacrificing my just relationships and things like that. So the thing that I had to learn, and what happened was my body just said, screw you, we're going to force you to get healthy because I thought I was going blind for a little while and weird stress issues.
Is it because you're on a computer so much? Is that why you're going blind, or what?
It was stress-based migraines is really what it was. What
was going on in your world when you were getting these stress-based migraines? Like, what was your routine looking like?
So the thing that I really realized, this was if we go full circle to the start of what we talked about, is that I had learned and modeled my family, and when they were outside of their comfort zone, they got really stressed out. And it was almost like a fish in water to where I wasn't even aware of the patterns that were running, these habits that were running. The one that really did it was the fact that I'd refresh the shopping cart. And I've heard other guys doing this. You're just constantly refreshing the shopping cart. Is it another sale come in? Another sale come in? And it's like, oh no, it didn't. And you're like just creating this trigger that's creating all the stress.
A dopamine rush and then a dopamine like just outpour and just so much happening because when that sale comes in. And then when you don't get a sale, you're like, oh, I'm doing something wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. So one was just removing that. I do the numbers like once a month. As long as the numbers are close, I know I can go to next month. But really what it was is there was a time where the stress was so bad. I was really like laying down on the ground in pain, going to the doctor thinking I have an ulcer. Just like, nope, it's just like a panic attack sort of thing. And I'm like, where did this come from? I've traveled all over the world. I've met, thousands of people, ran events in Zagreb, Croatia, and had dogs chasing me down, like all this crazy shit. But again, it's just when you're outside your comfort zone, you have to learn how to deal with it. And there was a time where I'm like, I think I screwed myself up for life. I think my stomach is literally messed up forever. And then again, like the blind thing, you get these migraines and you start seeing these dots. And so what do? You go on WebMD.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, based on your scenario, it looks like your eyeballs are detaching from your retinas. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God.
It says, please dial 911 now. You're like, what?
Exactly. And so really what it came down to was like, really forcing myself to step away from the computer, forcing myself to go to the gym. And actually, I think of higher achievers, I wouldn't be surprised if you have a lot of guys like this too. It's like, it's our generation is a big thing too. The millennials is we're so impatient for success. Right. Everyone feels like they're behind the eight ball. They're just trying to catch up to everyone else because of social media and it's all in front of your face.
It is, yeah.
And so I feel that it's a mixed bag of either cranking up people's sense of urgency, but then when they get to that, it's like, whoa, let's balance this out now and focus on all these other things too.
Man, there's a ton of conversation here. I haven't shared this on the podcast, but I can relate with the stress factor. There was a point about 6 months ago when I was having this pain up my neck, and it was a migraine in my head. And I usually don't have migraines, maybe a minor headache, but I was having these migraines. And so obviously I did the WebMD thing, and it said, you need to go to the doctor now. Basically, it was like dial 911 if you can't walk and all this. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I freak out and I drive to the urgent care, and they basically tell me that they're like, ask me all these questions, and I think I'm dying or something. And they're just like, you're stressed and you need to calm down. And so they gave me all these like stress kind of remedies and all these like different pills and things, natural stuff. And that was a big aha moment for me, where I realized that success, doesn't have to happen right now. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about like success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And so really falling back to like my gratitude and being fulfilled for what I have done and trusting in the process, like being patient has allowed me like to step back and equally get way more done. So I'm curious in your, to continue on with what you were sharing, when you found that balance, did you find that you were being more productive? Better results were coming out of that?
Yeah, I'll hit it from a couple different sides here. The first thing, I think another reason this happens is because a lot of the self-help gurus out of there, especially the ones that like don't work with people directly a lot, what they go with that whole like till the bitter end, you got to push it so hard. Like, and I used to have this mindset where I'm like, I'm working at 7 p.m. and I'm like, when you're out to dinner with your girlfriend, I'm still working. I'm getting ahead of the competition.
Yeah.
And so that mindset is definitely kind of pushed pretty hard. And so it's kind of like stepping away from that, realizing who that's for, right? Because advice is necessary for the people that are stuck, procrastinators. That's great for them. But if you're hitting it hard, you need to be looking at things a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
I would say 100% what you said about the gratitude, that was my pattern interrupt, in that the thing that really got me worked up, I don't even say stress anymore. I guess that's another thing too. Instead of, what happened was I was apprenticing with this trainer who she's 80 years old now, and she worked with Tony Robbins when he was in his 20s, worked with Richard Bandler for like 30 years on stage doing NLP. I mean, she was a trained clinical hypnotherapist, lives here in Chicago. So we'd have coffee multiple times a week, and she'd just tell me the wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you always say you have so much to do. Like, I got so much to do right now. I got so much to do. And that's like the tonality too. And I'm like, but the thing is, I do have so much to do. Yeah. And she's like, well, as long as you keep saying that, it's going to manifest in reality, right? And so also the tone of voice that I had, basically this was my internal dialogue. Oh my God, I got so much to do. I got to do this. I got to do that. And if this voice was going on in your head, if you had this voice in your head, do you not think you'd not maybe breathe a little too much and you'd be a little bit stressed out and freaking out? And so the first thing was just slowing down my internal dialogue. And so like I said, I have like a mixed bag of half a dozen, 2 dozen sort of things to interrupt the pattern. But the other one with it too that I realized is that my best thoughts come in the shower. And I find that very interesting because what's going on when you're in the shower?
Yeah, you're alone.
Your conscious mind, well, you're alone, and then your conscious mind turns off. It's the one time where you're not like, oh, willpower, just think like, oh, cognitive thinking, I'm so intelligent. And you just like let it go. And so really having faith in the subconscious to really help you out. And then you could look at Napoleon Hill, you could look at, all the old sort of things from the 30s and 40s where they sound a little mystical and law of attraction like.
Yeah.
But really that's what it is. It's like having the trust and faith in your subconscious. And so the more I'm able to open up to that, another big one with that too was once the business finally stabilized and I had cash on hand, that too, all of a sudden the stress goes away and it leads to so many more huge innovative ideas and things like that. So it's creating an environment to where I can allow that to happen more and more. So to answer your question, and the long answer here is 100% questions I ask myself and then the answers I get back. And so the business sort of solutions and the ideas are 10x, 50x, 100x better now that I'm out of that fight or flight, stressed out. It's a low consciousness state. You're literally in a reptilian sort of reactionary mode there. So 100%, it's forced me, the diet, again, like I said, there's a million things to try to get into a place where, like I said, I don't even use the word stress. I'll just say every so often I get a little bit wound up and then to do less and less of that.
Yeah. But you said showers. I think we all come with great ideas in the shower. I like bike rides. For me, I live by the bay in San Diego, and I always go for bike rides. I'll probably go for one right after this, and I come up with such great ideas because I'm just biking, a little exercise, but just beautiful nature and just fresh sun and air. I mean, sometimes getting sun is I'm like, because sometimes I'm working so hard, and so to force myself to go out and it's really like counter to, I'll tell my friends, it's like you have to have like a normal life sometimes. And because sometimes when you're just all focused on that work and you're right, man, there's memes, there's like all kinds of social media images that say that you need to be working, that you need to be grinding, that you're not successful if you're not putting in 12 plus hours a day, every day, Monday through Sunday. And I find that for me that it takes away from my greatest work, but I can definitely do a lot of low level work if I continue to work like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually that reminds me of a couple other real quick life hacks here. One is I took email off of my phone. I don't have notifications for Facebook either. None of my employees work. I have 2 employees full time that we don't have to work on the weekend. I don't even open my laptop on the weekend. Like I have a rule after 7 p.m. and Saturday, Sunday, can't even open the laptop. Like we use Slack and stuff like that. No notifications on the weekend or on my phone. So those are those little pings that get you sucked back in, get you start thinking about it. So for me, I love just hitting it hard on Saturday night, going out till 4 a.m., like fucking around and having a bunch of drinks, and waking up Sunday hungover. That I found, like, if I do work through the weekend, like I'm doing kind of a launch right now, I kind of have to. But when I come around to Monday, I'm not as centered. I'm not ready to rock as if I am. Like if I don't work all weekend, I'm like a bolt of lightning Monday morning. I'm like, let's go,
Yeah, you got to
and surprisingly, when you train people around you, like the way I work with my clients, I don't have email support with them and things. Like I don't get email. Like Monday comes around, not a single email is like, oh my God, like the business is falling apart. So it's kind of just like, you set yourself up for it, and then creating personal boundaries to not work, I guess, is the counterintuitive part.
Absolutely. Great tips and insights. I had a really funny moment. I was having lunch with my family, and they're talking about what they're doing for the summer. And my brother's like, "Oh, I'm going to Maui." He just got he just got married and he's going out to Maui. He's going on a great trip. And they got an Airbnb right on the beach. And my mom's like, "Oh, I'm going to Barcelona. We're going to go to the beaches in Spain." And then like, "Andrew, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, got this big event I'm doing, got this launch I'm working on." And I remember driving home like, wow, like, Andrew, you work, twice as hard as, you work really hard. And it's important that you take care of yourself. And like, people go on vacations and you work so hard so you can have quote unquote freedom. But sometimes you forget that's why you got started. And I think for a lot of listeners, we are so quick to spend money on what will make us like more money, but potentially not so quick to spend money on self-care and things that would like self-love, self-care, vacation, things like this that could actually help us rejuvenate. What are your thoughts on this? Have you had any encounters similar to this?
Well, I think what it is actually, one, I definitely agree that you kind of disconnect from the initial motivation of why you did it. So I kind of feel it's like top heavy. It's like a flower that gets so heavy that it's kind of like, and you get stressed out and you're like, oh, holy shit, I forgot the whole reason I got into this whole thing.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing, when it comes to things like health, when it comes to the gym or when it comes to meditation or it comes to taking vacations and stuff, is like that actually will lead to more money in the long run.
Yeah.
It's just in the short run. So it's a very myopic view. It's looking at things, you're stuck in the weeds. And the thing is, the trip is what allows you. Like I just took, my first trip in a long time. I was in Lake Tahoe for like a bachelor party.
Nice.
And coming away from it, it just gave me such perspective of like, I just had like some really huge revelations about like the overall meta view of what the company was, as well as just my identity as an entrepreneur. And these things don't happen when you're in the daily grind.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, and then also I think another thing with that too is like the people that I know that are the most successful, like 100 million, 300 million, multi-billion-dollar people, all they do is just have coffee dates and they're just networking.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too, that there's no immediate return on investment through like us communicating or something like that. Like I'm not going to make 10 grand today because I had a podcast. But the thing is, like, you do enough of, you just meet people, you do different things, stuff like that happens. And then, you start growing your brand. And like, so people, I think when you're in the weeds, you're always looking at how can I inch out 1% today, or how can I get $100 more, $1,000 more today, or what can I do right now, compared to really focusing, having a mixed bag there. I feel like I said mixed bag like 3 or 4 times here on this call, but it's like having that where like, what is that long-term thing you're also focusing on too, and making sure to balance those two out.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about some of the richest, most successful people really just networking, having good lunches with views. And you're like, how are you so successful? There's an HBO documentary about Warren Buffett, and it says it's new. It just came out. It's actually free on YouTube, I think. But for those listening, and it says that he reads 8 hours a day. Like he's just alone, like in his office, and he's just reading all these magazines and newspapers and all this. And he is one of the richest people in the world, and he really just makes one key decision or strategic move about every 18 months, like one big action every 18 months. But he's spending about 1.5 to 2 years coming up with the idea or learning, where the opportunity is. And overall in his career, he's made about 25 decisions that have made him one of the richest men in the world, and wisest investors of potentially all time. I think there's a lot to be learned about just that right there.
Yeah, I think what someone might say hearing that is they'd say, well, it's easy when you have employees, or it's easy when you have capital to make a decision and have it just say, oh, go execute on this new partnership I just made during this coffee date. But the thing is I wouldn't say act as if, but model the people that you look up to, and you'll end up figuring that part of it out. So I remember Dan Kennedy talks about what another thing people that are rich do. They just have like, well, one, they give 10% before they pay anyone else, pay yourself first, sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And as well as they also talk about contribution. And he's like, I don't know what it is, but rich people just do this. So I did it too. And then I became rich. And so it's like when you find those things, you're like, you don't have to understand why. It's all this weird subconscious shit anyways. Just model what they're doing. Of course, don't go bankrupt because you're just doing coffee dates with successful people. Like, you got to at some point take action.
You got to get to that point. Someone's got to be taking action, you or someone that you're paying.
Yeah. And then, but it leads to better questions, because you're like, this happened with our company, is that I started networking with, like I said, that one mentor of mine is worth 300 million. I got to go drive out to meet him. And afterwards I'm coming back and my employee's like, I want to get it to the point where you can do this more. And I'm like, me too. How can we make that happen?
You're like,
so it's kind of like, but if I was just stuck in the weeds writing sales copy or creating the next product or coaching, that conversation would have never happened. So it's like through me forcing myself when I didn't really want to do that, I couldn't really afford to do it. It led to, okay, well, how do we position the company long term so I can do this more? And the first step is just jumping in the water and actually doing it once.
Yeah, really playing that visionary hat rather than the technician type hat. And how can you set yourself up to where you're having powerful conversations on a consistent basis with guys like this? I think powerful conversations lead to lead to a powerful life.
For sure.
Overall, let's dive now into the knowledge round. I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions here. So just kind of some, what comes to you first, gut level responses. Just say it, let it out, no filters, short and simple. So are you ready for the knowledge round, Wade?
For sure. Let's do it.
All right. My first question for you, Wade, is what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost or unsure of their purpose?
Dang, man. This is actually, I was thinking about this like all week. I'm like, how do you find your purpose? For me, what it is the answer is always in the subconscious. And usually what it comes down to is two things. Well, you want like fast answer? I guess a quick fast answer, like a little bit of visualization, like imagine your ideal life, sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath. What do you want your life to look like a year or two from now? And then just backwards engineer it. The other big thing, the people that are lost, usually they say like, I just can't see the future. Things are cloudy for me. And so a lot of times that comes into the language and the fact that if people says like, I want success with women, what the hell does it actually mean? Does that mean a beautiful girlfriend or does that mean like 3 like live-in girlfriends or something like that? I want to have financial freedom. Is that living on a beach in Thailand? Or is that, having a career where you're making $200,000 a year? And when you get super specific to the point you can picture yourself in that chair, what does your perfect day look like? And you imagine yourself living that life, feel what you feel, the sounds that you hear along with that. It makes it so real that then it's easier to get there. And so that's what I feel people that are lost, they don't have that vision.
Really good. I like it. And so what's one morning ritual that you have to do? And if you don't do it, it's going to mess up your day.
I had a full routine for my morning ritual used to last 8 hours because basically I just standardized the entire day. But I guess the biggest one I would say is just no snooze. No snooze because it fucks up your sleep cycles. Yeah. You fall back into REM, you get out of it. That, and I guess I have my pseudo bulletproof coffee, just a coffee with some grass-fed butter in it.
Yeah, there it is. Do you wake up at the same time every day?
Weekdays, I wake up at 7 a.m. every day.
And then weekends, should we not talk about it?
We'll see. I don't, like I said, my weekends, I try to make it as much as a free-for-all as possible. My goal is to wake up at noon and be hungover and be like, holy crap. Like literally it makes my weeks, like with structure comes freedom. The more structure I have during the week, the more it gives me the freedom to just go hell balls to the wall on the weekends.
All right, man. Gotta live. And now, okay.
Work hard, play hard.
Yeah, it's good. What do you think is holding most men back from becoming stronger, grounded men today?
Their mom. No, I'd say, probably the best book. The thing that I think of is like No More Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah. It's a great book to check out. Yeah, it's like, I just look at myself, man. Like I was just too passive. I was just too nice. And what it is you're not willing to be unapologetic. You learn to model, we modeled from our parents and things like that. And so assertiveness, taking action, that's a huge topic, but be more assertive. I'll say that, and read some David Data.
Yeah, really good stuff. Classic work for men, Glover and David Data. What do you think happens to a man who is passive throughout his life?
You're either living life by your agenda or someone else's. And so if you're passive, you're letting other people force their future life and you just kind of are a reed in the wind, So as much as you'd like to just be the nice guy and some girl would be like, yes, you're nice, I love you. It doesn't work that way. And it's the same thing in the business world. You can't just be like, if I'm just good at what I do, people will realize it. Like you got to be cutthroat. You got to be assertive. You got to learn how to be persuasive and sell yourself.
Yeah. What's the biggest sort of, let's say, bad habit that you're working on crushing right now?
In my own life?
Yeah.
Well, my girlfriend went vegan. So I'd say I'm half vegan. And basically she's not like, she doesn't like, oh, the animals. It's just like for her health. And it's actually pretty cool. Sex drive goes up for women too.
Oh, that's great.
So I guess it'd be eating more and more of a plant-based diet is what we're trying to do. So that's been interesting since I was eating steak 5 times a week for a while there.
Yeah. I actually do vegan breakfast and lunches, and then I have meat at night. I should probably have meat for lunch and then a vegan dinner. That'd probably make more sense. But I find that for the productivity, the health, for your stomach, for just how you feel, I'm typically hungry throughout the day, but I love it. I mean, are you loving the results and the effects?
I would say it's not to the percentage yet where I could tell. I just love that I'm limiting my beef intake.
Yeah.
So that alone has been huge. And I mean, hey, best life hack for the guys out there, just get a girlfriend to cook your meals, and then it makes things a lot easier.
If you can't, and if you can't do that, then meal prep it. Meal preps are, man, you save so much money. They cook for you, they deliver it. I pay like $100 a month for 5 dinners, 5 lunches, 5 snacks, and
oh, that's not bad
it's
at all.
all delivered to your house. It's all organic, non-GMO. It's great.
What brand do you use?
It's actually not. It's not available for the rest of the world. It's just this. It's a local company here in San Diego that like sources all the food, but it's just San Diego. But this is available. Like every major city has these different people who do stuff like this. I highly recommend getting that in check. Will make so much of your life easier. And I think just eating healthy, and you paid for it already, so you have to eat it. You can't just go out and buy some crap. You want to pay for it, eat it since you paid for it. Well, now back to you, Wade. What have been 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey, and why?
The one, I would just say the 3 that I'll do 4. The one I've recommended the most is 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden.
Yeah.
For inner gain, self-esteem, it's just a great way of just viewing it. It's just amazing. Just check it out.
Yeah.
2 for business would be the E-Myth. Is, paradigm shifting, paradigm breaking book for me, and recommended that to a bunch of people. I forgot the David Data, if it's related specifically like masculinity and men.
The way
just
superior men.
Yeah, like just understanding polarity. It's like seeing the matrix of male-female dynamics, And then my actual just overall favorite book is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
And why is that your favorite?
So that one, sorry, I got a little
train. Just got to acknowledge the.
Yeah.
So you're in downtown Chicago right now?
Downtown Chicago, right on State Street by the Hancock Building.
Nice.
So it's always great as you're filming products and halfway through.
And you have to pause and
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Larry King says, as long as you acknowledge the noise, then the audience is okay with it. They're actually okay. So like right now, we just acknowledged it, and they're probably like, "Oh, cool, he's in Chicago. All right," and then we'll just continue on here.
Yeah.
So why
Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, why is that your favorite?
I think for me, it's just if you look at it just from a men's standpoint, you have those quintessential examples of the perfect man. So you have like Hank Rearden, Francisco d'Anconia, the John Galt characters. They're just an idealized, almost cartoonish level of awesomeness for the success that they have, the way they hold themselves, the way they even communicate with each other. And so for me, I try to read it once a year, even just the selfishness aspect. When we talked about a guy being too passive, a lot of that stems from like the virtue of selfishness, and being in that world of, Atlas Shrugged. It's like a 1,200 page book. It just envelops you into that sort of reality for a long period of time. So and the audiobook's great. If you get the audiobook, it's Christopher Hurt is the narrator. To look out further, I think there's 2 different versions, and yeah, can't recommend it highly enough.
Awesome. Great books. I'll check it out. And how much do you invest in yourself? So do you do courses? I can see behind you have a whole bookshelf of books. Do you travel? You said you meet with mentors. You move around the city.
Yeah, I had a client who was incredibly successful, like built a Finnish casino and sold it on the Stockholm Stock Exchange. And I remember asking him, because he got to the point where all he did was like self-development courses. And I'm like, how much do you spend on self-help in a year? He's like, as much as I can find. Every seminar I can find, I'm going to do it. I think there's that Brian Tracy where he says like, what is it? Do 10% of your income and put it towards investing, and soon enough, you're like, there's not enough shit you can even buy. I don't know what I would say on average. It's definitely a lot of it's business consulting that I'm getting within the company. It's a few thousand a year for sure. I have a couple goals. I definitely want to do Date with Destiny this year, but my big one either for the end of this year or next year is the Dan Kennedy Titanium Group, which is like $40,000, which is not in my price range. It's not. I can't do that right now.
Is that a mastermind group or?
Yeah, basically he's got like 20 people. And, he directly works with you, and you go do hot seats with the other members and stuff like that. And you know how they always say, it's like, you can't have your own $40,000 event until you do it yourself first. For me, it's as much as I can. It really is whatever makes sense within the business context. And I'm in a lucky situation. I think you are too, where me going and doing a self-development seminar, it's like doubly valuable because I
get to share with others and it impacts your clients.
Modeling the business, and all that stuff. So as much as I can, really.
Absolutely. So now this one's a scenario. So imagine you had 60 seconds with 20-year-old Wade, if you could envision where he was at personally, professionally, relationships, and knowing what you now know today, what would you tell 20-year-old Wade to do and not to do?
That's interesting. If I only had 60 seconds, the thing of who I was then is I really had no direction. My parents, again, because they didn't go to college, they're like, go to college. We don't know how it works, so go figure it out. I joke with my girlfriend, but this is truly true in that I didn't know how to use like soap until I was like 18 or 19. I'm like, oh, people use soap every day. Like I was literally that naive and oblivious. It's like unbelievable. Like when I was young, I didn't know you're supposed to close your eyes when you fall asleep. Like, does that even make sense? Like, do you have to be taught that? But literally, like, that's like the level of naivety I guess I somehow had. So I feel like the thing that just popped in my head is it's a picture of me slapping myself in the face, saying like, don't be a little bitch and go figure it out. What I would say is like, success is a deductive process. It's more like a sculpture than it is a painting. And it comes down to trial and error and failing as fast as possible and getting comfortable with failing until you find out what fits for you. And so that's really the thing, getting comfortable with failure is I don't know if that would have worked for me at the time because I'd have been like, well, tell me how to fail. But that like the thing is, that's what I'd say. It's like, if you want to find the path, go out and mess shit up a little bit. And that's how you're going to get there.
Boom. I like that. Success is like a sculpture. Yeah. Just letting that sink in. I think we can all use that. And now that concludes, the knowledge around there. I'm wondering now, what's exciting you today? Like what's getting you out of bed in the morning?
I mean, for me, it's just work, man. Like I have so much potential with like, it's been interesting since I built the company about 3 years ago, changing the name. I used to have my like pseudonym as Brad and stuff. So really almost starting from scratch from a brand perspective. I feel like we've really spent about 2 years just building the framework and, the CRM and the, becoming a better writer, the product's just getting better and better, becoming a better coach. I got like 20 coaching clients now. And so like every week, like the coaching is just evolving and you're seeing the patterns emerge and things like that, to where all my time is spent outside of work-life balance, right? Hanging out. My girlfriend just moved in here. So that's a whole nother, opportunity for growth, we'll call it. But really what it is, just day in and day out. I think like most entrepreneurs, it's like the business is everything. I guess like from that perspective, the big thing would be the subconscious really excites me, and getting more and more, because it's such an intangible thing, being able to use that more like persuasion and being able, true change happens on the subconscious level. So getting better and better at using subconscious persuasion tactics to get the best results with my clients. That would be the big thing that I'm focused on.
Where I see you right now, and it looks like it's your office in Chicago. Is this are you working from home? Is that predominantly where you do your work?
Yeah, for me, I love just straight up, I don't even listen to music. It's just silent other than the sirens.
Yeah.
And just, me staring at, I'm just in Microsoft Word 10 hours a day, either outlining courses or writing, copy for courses and emails, and it's, who knew I would basically become a writer. But that's it. Just staring at Microsoft Word all day long.
How does this work now? What I wanted to get to was, like you said, the girlfriend just moved. You guys live together. So if you're at home a lot and you're not leaving for work, how does that impact the dynamic?
It works out well in the morning. That actually really fully standardized the 7 a.m. Like I was playing with 6 a.m., 7:30, but when she has to go to work, she leaves at 8:30. So I get up a little bit before so I can finish my morning routine before she's ready. And then I'm up and working already when she's getting ready and things like that. So the morning routine was huge. We're still actually working on the nighttime one because I'm trying to go to bed between 11:30 and midnight, where she's kind of up later. And so we're meshing there a little bit. That's really what the thing is trying to figure out those morning nighttime routines, who's cooking what nights, how often are we having sex and things like that. All sorts of fun conversations that you don't expect to happen until you are seeing each other every single day.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I'm going through that. In that moment, like how do you have those conversations about sex when you're living together? It's like, how do you enter that conversation and lead it to a place where it's beneficial for both? It's not just you being horny and trying to get sex all the time.
Well, that's what, and maybe I'm a little bit older. I mean, I'm about to turn 35 here. So my sex drive has slowed down a little bit, but it really, I'd say the foundation of it, like if I could give another book, would be Getting to Yes. it's a multiple author book, but it's a negotiation book. And really what they talk about is like the better you can understand their situation and even the more you can understand your own, what ends up happening is there's usually always money left on the table where people think it's like $1,000 or 500. We settle for $750. And so it's like, we have sex 7 nights a week or 3 nights. We got to go in between. It's 5. And so realizing when you really put yourself in their shoes and you really understand what you want better, you can always connect the dots in some creative way. But the first step is really, and then the other thing with that they talk about, it's like be hard on the problem, but soft on the people. And I think in relationships, that's where most people go wrong because they're like, you always do that. You always said that. This is what you do. Instead of like, here's the situation. How can we deal this non-emotionally and just kind of neutrally talk out the conversation? And that's not easy, right? Like that wasn't easy for me at the start and even more for her. And so that's a process we've been going through for a long time of getting better and better at. We've been together for like 4 years now of when those things come up, getting to them right away instead of letting it fester for a day or a week or something like that. Yeah. Just immediately getting it out there. And then secondly, doing it in a way you're not attacking the other person. So for like the sex thing, I was just kind of like, I'm like, hey, you know what? I could tell it was like, I felt uncomfortable. And I'm like, I just want to say, this is a little awkward, but the whole sex thing, we're moving in here. I don't need it every single night. I'm assuming you probably don't want it every single night. I don't want to like say, hey, we do it on Saturdays because I think that's weird. Yeah. But I also realize like some nights that you just want to sleep. And I also don't want, because they're also worried like if we don't have it, then like, does he not love me anymore? Right. And so I'm like, and it just kind of like really throwing it out there, like unapologetically, like this is kind of how I feel. This is how I think you feel. What are your thoughts on this? You know? And literally it was almost identical for the food thing. It's like, hey, I don't need you to cook every night, but I just want to know. So I'm not waiting around. Like what works for you here and kind of really, and then she's like, it's like, hold on, no, we don't need to freak out. Like, I'm not attacking you here. We're just trying to like, let's just talk this through. And so as we've like, it's so cliche, but all relationships is just communication. Yeah, it's a lack of communication.
I was just going to say, and I think too, with your business and your team, I think it's just all communication too. Like growing a team, it's communication. I think marketing, it's all communication. I think, in many ways you could say life is really about how effectively can you communicate.
For sure. Yeah.
So did you say that you're working on a book? Like you said, oh, it's in negotiation. Did I hear that? Or did you say this could be a book?
Oh, no, that is a book. There's a book called Getting to Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right, great. I was just going to say, where can we find more about that? But obviously your website here, wadealters.com, wadealters.com. Also Google Wade Alters. Also go to YouTube and type in Wade Alters. He has a ton of free content. And do you have any other place where the audience can follow up with you?
Yeah, I'd just say the YouTube and the podcast, Wade Alters Show. Those are the two spots, especially if you got all the podcast listeners here and everything like that. I also have a product launch coming out pretty soon. It's called The Baseline, and that's really full-on inner game sort of product. So you can see more about that on the website and everything. But like you said, it's just that mix of inner game plus kind of business consulting and mixing it all together to become the perfect man, right? That's what we're getting towards here, right?
That's exactly what we're getting towards. All right, Wade, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story, lessons, and wisdom here with my community. It's been an honor.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.